And we got extra seats for whoever wants to sit. Please sit.
I'd like to remind everyone to please turn off your cell phones for the service. Folks, if we can ask you to move a little bit this way, there are plenty of chairs. Please don't be bashful.
Right. Shalom, everybody. Let us gather in. Of course, we want to maintain safety considering this pandemic and considering the fact that Yona was a physician and would want to make sure that everyone's health was taken care of. So we reflect on that as we take care of one another. If you do need a seat, please come in. So we gather today as death has taken our beloved Yona Victor. Our friends grieve in their darkened worlds. In their silence, there is lamentation. In their tears, there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow, may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, and be with them. For Yona's love that united us in life and which death cannot sever. For her companionship that we shared along life's path and which continues through the tenderness of memory. For the gifts of her heart and mind that brought us joy and happiness and is now a precious remembrance. For all these and more, we give our thanks to God. For the reading of the first Psalm, I call upon my colleague and friend, Rabbi Rick Rhines, the Senior Rabbi of Temple Sinai.
Thank you, Rabbi. Our heart goes out to you, Ellen, and the whole family. I know that Yona touched an awful lot of lives at Temple Sinai over 32 years, and a regular with Rabbi Zweren's Torah class and at Chavurah and in the choir. And her loss will be felt by so many. And how wonderful it was just a couple of days ago that you were able to get online and connect the class at Rabbi Zweren's Torah class to say goodbye, to say blessings, not goodbye, but blessings for your beloved mother. The psalm I would like to share is the 23rd Psalm, and it speaks of that knowledge that we will walk in the valley of the shadow. And as Dr. Victor worked so long with Rabbi Elliot Baskin at JFS as one of the community para-chaplains, as she knew, both as a physician and as a chaplain, how fragile our life is. And yet, you don't live a life in fear. And whether it's at the hospital or at her later residence when she was battling, you still felt that intelligence, that sharp wit, that spirit that was indomitable. This is what our ancestor wrote. Adonai ro'i ro'exar. Ino deshe yad bitzeni al me'menu chod yan chaleni nafshi yoshaveh. Yan chen v'magalei tzedek l'ma'an shemo. Gam ke'elek b'geitz ha'mavet lo iraraki ata imadi. Shiftecha mishentecha chema yanachamoni. Ta'arok lefanai shochan neged torarai. V'shanta v'shem roshi kosiravaya. Achtov v'chesed yedachone kol yemei chayai. V'shavti b'beit Adonai le'orech yamim. To the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters, and he restores my soul. God guides me in straight paths for the sacredness of his name. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You present a table for me in the presence of my enemies, and you've anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. Her spirit is with you, and it's with all whose lives that she touched in our community. I wanted to share one more passage, and this is from Kohelet, chapter 3 of Kohelet, which we read at the time of the festivals, making a note our ancestors did of the passing of the seasons and drawing that metaphor of the passing in the chapters of the seasons to the chapters of our lives and our experiences. There is a time for every season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to remove the stones and a time to gather those stones together. And you can still see that tradition of gathering the stones and putting them on the head stones of our grave sites. There's a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek, a time to lose, a time to keep, a time to let go, a time to tear, as in that kriya that you just tore, the sign of mourning, and a time to sow, that healing, that emotional healing that happens when you're gathered around loving family and friends. It's a time to keep silence because no words are adequate. And there's a time to speak because a good neshama, a good soul, and certainly Yona was that. We cannot say goodbye without extolling her life, her values, and her goodness.
Thank you, Rabbi Rons, as you've led us into this time to mourn. Birth is the beginning and death a destination. But life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness and loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude and pain to compassion and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, the sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination. But life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage, from birth to death to life everlasting. In his sorrow, Job cried out, Adonai Natan, Adonai Lakach, Yehi Shem, Adonai Mevarach. God has given, God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. An ancient people, we are well acquainted with grief and the valley of shadows. Death and sorrow are not strangers to us, yet the centuries have taught us that a good name endures beyond the grave, and that there is strength in faith. With Job we say, Adonai Natan, God, you have given. You gave us a loved one, Yona, Diane, Victor, who will not be forgotten. For all that was good and enduring in her life, we offer the deepest thanks of our hearts. Adonai Lakach, God, you have taken away. We pray for the strength to turn our broken hearts into an altar of trust before which we acknowledge your sovereignty and love. As we say, Yehi Shem Adonai Mevarach. Blessed be the name of God forever. We gather today during a very auspicious time. It's a time that literally counts. You see, it's the time between the festival of Passover and the festival of Shavuot, the time of the Exodus and the time of our liberation. And our sages say that we are to count the time between it with a ritual called the counting of the Omer, the barley sheaf that was used and presented in ancient temple times to mark gratitude for the harvest. And so each day we count the 50 days between Passover and Pentecost. This is the 26th day of the Omer. And in my Omer counting app, I found this today. In the end, what passes turns to dust, and what is essential is eternal. We come here today to accompany the physical body of Yona as it returns to the earth and passes into the dust. But what is essential of her as a giving, loving, dedicated, industrious, caring individual is eternal and will never be forgotten. This is a time in which we count and we think about how Yona counted for us. We think about how we counted on her and how she made every day count. That's the legacy of a life that counts. We think of her 75 years growing up in Kensington, Maryland, with a loving family, with Selma and Sam, devoted Jewish parents of modest means. She would help work in their store, doing what she could and transmitting those values. She was accompanied by her beloved sister, Rena, of blessed memory, who was married to Jerry, and her beloved brother, Phil. They grew up as a tight family, a family with Jewish values, a family where learning was important. That was something that I saw when I was an instructor at the Melton Mini School. And Selma would come each and every week, and Yona would schlep with her, and they would learn together. Learning was so important. For Yona was a perpetual student. She was a scholar, someone so bright in her time. We saw that when she went to Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland. Not only did she do her undergraduate there, she did her graduate, and she did medical school. She graduated Phi Beta Kappa and was in the top 1% of medical students with the Alpha Omega Alpha Honor Society for medical students. She was a pioneer. Today we see professions, women in all the professions. But in those days, what was it like to be a pioneer? I'm sure it was a struggle. I'm sure there were many Me Too stories. But what did she do? She stuck with it because she was industrious. She was hardworking. She was sharp as a whip, and she didn't give up. And so she was able to graduate with honors. She came out here to do her residency. And I think, like many of us who came out here for the mountains, we stayed for the people. She came out and loved the double black diamonds, which is why this funeral is just 1 week after the closure of the best ski resorts in the world with those double black diamonds, where I was just last week thinking of Yona, but I'm just on the single black diamonds, not the double ones. Whatever she did with passion and with verve. She came out here for the mountains and she met her Bashert. She met Leonid Smirnov, with whom she shared 13 years of a good marriage. We see here he lies. They would love to do their hiking, their outdoors, and would do particular wonderful Russian customs, like the hunt for the mushrooms, for him to make his famous mushroom soup. Oh, I would love to have a bowl of it, but whenever you have mushroom soup, you will think of that. A product of their love was you, Ellen, the apple of their eye. Oh, did they love you? Oh, were they fixated upon you? Oh, did they want to impart all those family values and the love of our tradition and what it means to be a good Jew and what it means to care and to give back to your community? And that love was just bigger even than you. When Yona, in her tenacity, schlepped to Russia to get you, Anna, so that you could live with the family. Because for Yona, family was more than just blood. Family was relationships. Family was going out and making friends who became like family. Family was her patience and all who got to know her, for she was a giver that made life count. She also had other family. She had her wonderful nieces and nephews, Sarah, Rachel, and Jonathan. And I know that she loved not only Ana, Carlos, but Alejandro. What's better than a grandchild? That's the love. That's the values that she had. And you know, in life, you can go and you can start with one career, but the true strength of character is how you are able to pivot in the challenges that life brings. We've seen this, haven't we, this last year of the pandemic. She was a brilliant, hardworking, and industrious internal medicine provider in her practice in Aurora to her patients. And then when she had her own physical challenges, she was able to pivot. She didn't just go out and read a book and be on disability. She would teach at the Platt Nursing School to help others be able to give medical care. And as if that wouldn't be enough, she began volunteering at Jewish Family Service of Colorado, where she started as a parachaplain and loved it so much. She came to me one day and said, "How do I become a chaplain? Yes, I know the medical. I know the psychological from my training, but tell me about the spiritual." Because she was a spiritual being and wanted to be able to care on all these levels. And so she went and took clinical pastoral education. I helped out with some of the supervision. She was able to count on me, but perhaps more importantly, I was able to count on her. I served for 20 years as Denver's Jewish community chaplain for the 85% of our community who had no rabbi. For those 85,000 people, I was their rabbi, on call 24/7, or actually 24/6, but actually even 7 if someone called me on Shabbos, I would be there, and I was only part-time. There's no way I could do that. But thank God for Yona Victor, who said, "I'm happy to help out. Let me be your assistant." And I said, "Thank you, God." And Yona was there, dedicated. When I was gone, if you would call my emergency number, she would pick up and I would put her name. And if I was out of town or skiing in the mountains, she would be there. And she'd go in there with that sense of caring and compassion. You don't always see that with medical professionals. But I think the fact that she had that academic insight, but then she had that personal experience, which helped her transcend looking at people as patients to look deep into their neshamas, their souls. That's what makes her such a special individual. And on behalf of myself, of Jewish Family Service, the other parachaplains who are present, and all those people she touched. And you may not even know their names, but it's not important. She was there. She did these mitzvot. Was she thanked? It didn't matter to her because she was a giver who made every day count. Her goal was saving lives and stamping out pain, be it physical, be it social, psychological, or spiritual. She was a person with many talents and hobbies. She was a great dancer. She would take Ellen to go dance, and hey, I'm here. Why shouldn't I sign up? She would dance with jazz and ballet. I mentioned before that she was a great skier. Her love was more than just for people, it was even for all sorts of animals and dogs. She loved camping, the outdoors, boating. She made the world a better place. She was brilliant. She was strong-willed. She was determined. She was supportive, kind, and independent. And when she lost her husband at a young age, what a challenge it must have been being a single parent to raise Ellen, take care of her patients, and do everything. Thank God for the Kaiser family and the friends and other people who helped out. But truly, it took a village, or as we might say, it took a shtetl. But look how it worked. Look at all the people she touched. Look at how she was able to count for her friends. As a hard worker, as a multitasker, as a caregiver, as a good manager. And despite the challenges, she would recite, "It is what it is." Okay, now go forward. What are you going to do with it? And so at this time of the counting of the Omer, we think how she counted on her family, her parents, her brother and sister, her nephews and nieces, her wonderful daughter, stepdaughter, grandchild, and counted on all of us as friends who became like family. She counted on us. We counted on her. Yona, Diane Victor's, was a life that truly counts. And now to share a few short reflections. We call upon Carol Polinsky, a friend, read by her son John, followed by Holly Caldwell and Julie Bessler from Platt College, followed by Alan Kantrovitz, Jewish Family Service parachaplain, followed by her older brother Phil virtually, and finally by her beloved daughter Ellen Smirnoff. And I ask you to come up, following in with the previous speakers. So John? Carol. Oh, Carol in person. I stand corrected.
Memories. 48 years of memories. My husband Abe, who was the PE director of the JCC, called. Someone needed a tennis partner. She was new to Denver, and so she went to the Jewish Community Center, as newcomers to Denver used to do. We were matched well enough, since neither of us were ready for Wimbledon. Who is to know this was the start of a lifelong friendship? One morning, several days later, I was at Winchell's Donuts, and a woman came in with a briefcase, hair in a tight bun, looking very professional. It took me a while to realize it was Dr. Yona Victor, my new tennis partner. As time went on, we shared days on the slopes, holidays, family time, picking mushrooms, and fishing. We shared birth, anniversaries, illnesses, and funerals as friends do. Yona encouraged me to return to work when my husband became ill. She even tutored me when I was studying to take the physical therapy licensing exam, especially after I flunked my first attempt. It worked too, and I worked for 20 more years. We shared happy events and not so happy events, as happens in life. But best of all, we watched Ellen become a strong and very accomplished woman. To Yona, a life well lived. Rest in peace, my friend. You will be missed, but not forgotten.
Ollie?
It's my honor to represent the chapter in Yona's life that was Platt College. And so I'd like to start by reading for my friend. So Julie Bosler is my friend and was Yona's friend. And we had the pleasure of working together at Platt College. And Julie wrote this today because she's in Florida. She said, I want to begin by extending my condolences to Ellen and the entire family as they mourn the loss of the late and great Dr. Yona Victor. I had the pleasure of coming to Platt College in August of 2007 as the Vice President of Academic Affairs. On my first day of work, my oldest daughter, Hannah, was beginning her first day of kindergarten. Today, as this letter is being read, I am walking 18 holes of golf as a spectator watching that little 5-year-old girl now 18 years old, playing as a Division I golfer in a national conference tournament at her university. When I received the message that Yona had passed away yesterday, I was watching my daughter play a practice round, and when I learned of her passing, I smiled knowing that my daughter is just one example of a woman who was impacted by the work of the late Dr. Yona Victor. Dr. Victor's path at the same age of Hannah right now was not easy. Despite deciding to become one of the few, if not the first female in her medical school graduating class, and selecting internal medicine as a field of choice was unheard of. And today, my oldest daughter plays a sport heavily dominated by males, and my youngest daughter at 14 follows in her footsteps because of the pioneering work of women like Dr. Yona Victor. And why was she such a pioneer? Well, one simple word, she was always honest. Some might say honest to a fault. But I believe she was honest because she always knew it was in the best interest of her patients, and later in her career, the stretch of her career that I witnessed, with her students too. Yona's expectations for students were high. She knew they had to be. Teaching nursing students and making sure that they understood the pathophysiology of the body meant that she expected nothing but the best of her students because she knew patients and their families would expect the same for them too. I was once ill, mysteriously ill, and had returned back from a trip to the south to visit my family. When I returned home, I was stiff and achy, and I was told I had inflammation in the lining of my lungs. Yona heard me mention this in the lunchroom to a colleague, and she stopped at my lunch table and said, "The doctors are wrong. It's not pleurisy in the lungs. It's Lyme's disease." I know it. If you don't get on the protocol for antibiotics, chances are you won't be able to walk in 10 years. That's the type of honesty that would rock you to the core of your body. Turns out she was right. I started the protocol and it saved me from having severe complications a decade plus later. There was also the sense of humor. Yes, she had a humorous side, but it didn't always show to our students. We once held a contest for our faculty and staff to bring pictures of themselves at some point in their lives that was meaningful to motivate the nursing students. The pictures were all hung, and then I noticed a new picture hung of this gorgeous woman. I walked down the hall and I stopped with my colleague Holly, and we were stumped looking at it. Yona walked by and said, "Are you staring at those pictures?" And she somewhat with a body language insinuated that it was a waste of our time. I said, "We can't figure out who this one belongs to." She stopped and looked and snickered. As she got to the door, she said, "Ladies, I wasn't always an old woman." That's the Yona that shook things up in medical school. And she laughed and laughed as she walked out the door. We were impressed. Brains and beauty and humor too. What a treasure those moments were. Last week, I was honored that Ellen called me and gave me the rarest gift, a chance to say goodbye to my friend and colleague. Ellen explained that while Yona couldn't respond, she could hear what we were saying. And I want to end by sharing with you what I said. Yona, my dear friend, I'm so thankful for this opportunity to tell Ellen in your presence that you did. You did it first, that is. You see, in 2016, when Hillary Clinton ran for president, they thought they coined a term, breaking the glass ceiling, but they didn't. That term was broken many years ago when this beautiful woman, strong, kind, highly intelligent, more importantly, dedicating her life to all humankind, entered the medical field as a doctor in internal medicine, created a beautiful family, and raised a daughter who is incredible. She not only broke the ceiling, she shattered the glass piece by piece. Her name was Dr. Yona Victor, and all of the Ellens, the Hannahs, the Averys, the Julies, and all the girls that have come after, all the women who said, "Yes, I can do this," did it because of women like Dr. Victor, who broke the glass for us all. I heard a quote. It says, "A bird sitting on a tree is never afraid of the branch breaking because her trust is not on the branch, but on her own wings." Fly high, my sweet friend. Shalom. And thank you for allowing me to share those words from Dr. Bosler. I just wanted to thank Ellen and the family for allowing me also to say goodbye to Yona. She became my friend and colleague after she was not able to teach. And she and I used to spend long lunches together where we would talk about what it was like to be a mother, a sister, a grandmother, those challenges and triumphs. And to me, she was a wise auntie and a wise leader. And I will miss her terribly, but she has impacted my life with her fiery strength and her unapologetic ability to tell it like it is. Something that is not always encouraged in women, but she had this strength that she could give you. And she could just expect the best out of you and tell you to suck it up and get on with it and do what you had to do. And I loved her, and I love her so much for that. A beautiful, strong, smart, kind woman. And I will see her again. So until we meet again, thank you for being my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Alan?
Well, I don't know if you noticed, but I was standing on the hillside too long and I knew I had to move. As soon as I took one step, I collapsed. So I'm putting the two Reformed clergy on notice, okay, that if I hit the deck, okay, I think I'm fine. Okay, blood pressure is good, all's good. So Rabbi Baskin said that I knew Yona through Jewish Family Service. As a parachaplain, about 3 years ago, I met her. Loosely, a parachaplain, this is very loose, just a quick definition, is to infuse a little Judaism, okay, into the lives of residents of senior facilities and leading services, other things. Most would go 1 or 2 times a month. I used to go every Friday to Rosemark where Yona was. I just felt good about doing it. I also did some holiday programming and remember meeting Ellen at a Hanukkah event several years ago when she was there with Yona. Never thought I had to go to Rosemark because I had to, only because I wanted to. And so I'm not going to speak about the Jewish family service aspect of it. You heard a lot from Rabbi Baskin on that. Our relationship grew into a friendship, somewhat like the previous speaker spoke about. We have all experienced a year like no other. Think about those individuals like Yona who lived in senior facilities, who could not leave their rooms most of the time, who could not get out in the hallways, who had to eat, in their rooms over a long year period, I had window visits with Yona where I would be on the outside of the building. She would be on the inside of the building. She would wear headphones and we would talk through our cell phones. It's like prison. That is actually a great analogy. It was prison, but that's sort of the environment that COVID kept us in. She had my cell number in her directory, and even past the time when we did a window visit, she would call me whenever she got the urge, and I would tell you that the calls were special. They were enjoyable. As I look back, they were not enough as far as I'm concerned, and she would probably say they were not enough as far as she was concerned. While I knew her for just 3 or 4 of her 75 years, I want to share those characteristics, some of which you've heard about today. I just want to give them to you from my perspective, which stood out to me. Pirkei Avot is translated as the wisdom of our sages. It's the part of the Talmud, the central text of rabbinic Judaism, covering law, ceremony, theology. In the 4th chapter of the wisdom of our sages, it states that Rabbi Nahorai taught, uproot yourself to live in a community where Torah is studied. Do not delude yourself that the Torah will come to you. Only with colleagues can your studies be fortified. Do not rely on your own understanding. The rejection of learning in solitude is one of the foundations of the classical method of study, which includes analysis, dialogue, discussion, debate with a partner, and that is still the hallmark of traditional Jewish study today. So, I will tell you, I could put one page here, and that describes Yona better than I ever could. Yona was a regular weekly participant, as you heard from Rabbi Rines, in Rabbi Zwerin's weekly Torah study. I just said for more than 20 years, I think Rabbi said 30 years, as each verse of the Torah in order is analyzed and discussed. She was a committed student. You heard that in her nursing study, in her medical school. Not only was Yona's mind precisely tuned for that, but her interest level positioned her to accumulate a wealth of Jewish knowledge. It was clear to me after just 2 months at Rosemark, maybe less, that Yona had a broad knowledge and curiosity about her Judaism. In fact, on a number of occasions, Yona corrected me on an incorrect statement. On an incorrect statement on my part, hopefully inadvertent on my part. I did feel intimidated, but it just caused me to better prepare for each of my sessions with Yona. I look back at my time with Yona with so much gratitude. We developed a special teacher-student relationship, which was always at work, but it was never clear who was the teacher and who was the student. And that was good. It fluctuated depending on what we were studying or thinking about. So she readily, I would always ask my residents, what was your favorite meal on Friday night? What was your favorite Shabbat melody? With Yona, you could ask more penetrating questions like, what one thing in your life, Judaically, has made the most impact on you? Torah study with Rabbi Zwerin. That was her answer, She readily credited Rabbi Zwerin with building her lifelong foundation and interest. So I also want to mention, since her desire to acquire knowledge and curiosity about her Judaism, they were clearly evident in other areas of her life. Quickly, medicine, you heard about that already. I would say I used to provide her with the opportunity to do complimentary medical consultations for me. Method to my madness. It was good for me, no, excuse me, good for her to continue in this unofficial practice of medicine. But it was good for me because I would receive the latest insight into what was my pain or what were my blood results. She would always offer, okay, her opinion if I asked for it, okay? My family and my world travels. Yona was always anxious to learn about my life and my experiences. In a short time that I knew her, I had been in Southeast Asia, Italy, I had been in New Zealand, Australia. She continued to absorb that information and ask for more. But one of the speakers talked about it as my last point. Yona was clearly a realist. She was understandably reluctant and then not so reluctant to ask for my assistance if she had trouble moving her hands or her fingers to accomplish a task if they were functioning too slowly. Yes, Yona experienced and suffered many medical issues. She regretted being in assisted living at a relatively young age, but she was a realist and she understood her situation much better than any of us would be understanding our situation because of her medical background. In the end, I know that Yona made me a more informed Jew, but really a better person. And I'll always be grateful for that. I already miss her, and may her memory be for a blessing.
Thank you, Alan. And now we're going to have via Zoom her older brother, Phil, share a few words.
Hello, my name is Phil. Yona and I, when we were young, weren't the best of friends, but as we grew older, we did become very close. We shared some extremely good times, like the summer I went up there and we went to several railroad museums and other museums to learn about transportation and things that this country developed and how they developed. And I'll always treasure these memories because they were shared with my very special sister, Yona Victor. Thank you, everybody.
And now I'd like to
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, everyone who's here today to honor my mother. Hi, Mom. I really appreciate everyone who's been there for us and helped us prepare for this unprecedented, unimaginable time in our lives. Thank you for all you've done, and to Rabbi Zwern who's watching, Rabbi Rhines, Rabbi Baskin, Holly, Julie, Carol, and Alan for speaking. Her medical school friends, the Changs, were not able to get something together in time, but I wanted to mention them. And because of the pandemic and my family not being able to travel right now, who are watching on Zoom, we're so grateful that we have this technology in this time to have this support and for them to be supported. We will be honoring her, hopefully this world
will be different next year. And hopefully you all will stay well and be here next year to celebrate her life and have more people be able to be here in person, including my family. So stay tuned for the celebration of life to honor her again. Before this week, the hardest day of my life was losing my father at age 7. But losing my dad at such a young age brought my mom and I closer together and kept us close for the next 30 years. She always called herself the cockeyed optimist, and I considered myself the catastrophist. Together, we balanced each other out, and she helped me see not only do things usually work out, but that I could work hard to make them work out. As a kid, she made sure I had everything I needed to find success academically, signed me up for activities to broaden my horizons, and indulged me when I wanted to adopt the saddest, most neediest animals looking for a home. We had a diabetic bird, epileptic rabbit, and Dr. Labonde, the avian specialist here, would say, "You guys are my best example when I tell people that they can do it." And I'm thinking, yeah, you would need a physician to give insulin to a bird. But I think she knew my desire to help animals came from her example of always helping people in need. I remember hanging out at her medical practice and saw firsthand how much her coworkers and patients loved her. Many of her friends were her patients. And when she had to retire, I didn't understand then until I was taking care of her with other physicians. Her secretaries cried because they didn't want to work for anybody else. And her patients cried because they didn't know who was going to care for him, for them like she did. If we ever passed an accident on a road, she would pull over to help anyone injured if first responders were not on the scene. She just jumped right in, told me to stay in the car. Even after her retirement, she would go to UC Med as a patient, and doctors would be so enamored with her and her mind that they would ask her to stay and talk to the medical students on rotation so they could learn from her. And they would say, "Oh, would you mind? Would you mind?" And of course, what is my mother? Captive audience in a hospital bed there. So yes, she did not mind. And she always loved to teach and have them learn from her. She would say, "There's nothing like saving lives and stamping out disease." And I credit her parents at a time when people were not doctors, that were, they were nurses, if they were female. And she said, "I want to help people. I want to be a nurse" at 12. And her mother said, "I don't think you like taking orders from other people. You should be a doctor." This was in the 50s. And her father also supported this. And her sister also became a doctor. To have 2 female doctors in this family was very rare. And to have 2 men like my father and my Uncle Jerry support strong women, for them to have found their Basharets was very rare. She worked as a chaplain and taught nursing students medical ethics. She was also asked to teach medical ethics at DU here, University of Denver. Because not only did she want to continue caring for people, she wanted to help raise the next generation in medicine to care about their patients too. My mom was a wise, empathetic, and caring person. But she definitely wasn't soft. And when I lost my father, I thought, well, at least I got this guy, this gal. She would be the only person I think that could have raised me the way she did, by herself, with this village that sits in front of me and online. She lived her life to the fullest and wasn't afraid to take risks. She could ski double black diamond trails and described how it felt like flying. And she enjoyed her ski weekends that we took as a family with Rick and Joan and Matt and Molly. Rick, Paul, and Joan Wynn. No matter her age, she always did things the way she wanted to do them. And because she was a brilliant doctor, doing them her way probably extended her life. Which I witnessed firsthand as she would manage her care with her physicians. And they would take cues from her because they knew how brilliant she was. And they were smart enough to listen and help her help herself. And we thank them so much, especially during this last month. As a doctor, she knew her Parkinson's prognosis and our rheumatoid arthritis. And she insisted on doing everything she could to maintain her quality of life she wanted. Losing my mom is the hardest thing I've had to experience. But I know we packed a lot of love into the 37 years together. Looking back, I'm still in awe that she could lose her husband, run her practice, and provide me with everything I could have ever wanted, including navigating the post-USSR bureaucracy to find and bring my half-sister Anna to Denver to be with us. Bug your parents enough and they'll get you something. I had asked my mother for a sibling, even after my father had passed. And she made it happen. There's so much I still wanted to share with her and so much I wanted to remember about her. I'll remember her as my biggest advocate. When I became a realtor, she supported me in my business that was notoriously stressful and convinced me I could do it. I remember how much she dedicated her life to caring for others and found new ways to do it when her medical conditions made the old ways harder. I remember the big moments, the birthdays, graduations, and the small moments. How my dog Max, or as she called him, her grand dog Mackie Poo, would curl up with her in bed when she wasn't feeling well, or watching The Voice together. Words can't express how much I will miss her. But my brilliant and loving mother found amazing people that she knew would help me throughout my life. My mother always talked about the village that supported her raising me, the Kaiser family, who I called mom and dad, since they watched me since I was 6 weeks old. And I asked, why do I call you mom and dad when you're not my mom and dad? It occurred to me when I was 4. And they have 6 kids, and they said, well, the kids were calling us that and we didn't correct you. But what an extraordinary gift. I know they're watching right now, and I love you guys so much. Rabbi and Ricky Zwerin, who, when I became older and she was worried if I lost her before I was of age, she was smart enough and knew me well enough and knew what a child needed to know that uprooting me to be with my family out of state, that had graciously offered my aunt and uncle to take care of me, might have not been the best thing at that point, as I had made friends and family here. And they had offered to take me and raise me as their own if anything should have happened. And the Herzl Ramah community, when she became a young widow, they were here in 1991 surrounding her and surrounding me. They all showed up, including the Kavars that are here today, that they taught her what Shiva was. They came out to Parker when we were in the middle of nowhere at that time. No one even knew where Parker was. My family had been there since 78. They drove all the way out there to sit with her. And we had been at the school less than a year. And then supported her in raising me through to 18. And the Temple Sinai community, who helped her spiritually and gave her beautiful friends that became family to share her life with as my father was gone, and help raise me. I'm so grateful for the family she gave me. Anna, Uncle Phil, Uncle Jerry, my cousins, Sarah, Rachel, and Jonathan, and our cousin Nancy, who are all watching right now. And I know would love to be here, but we are so glad they are staying safe and healthy and supporting us as they can. I hope her memory brings happiness and warmth to all of you. And I look forward to learning even more about her, sharing our memories together. May her strength, kindness, and life well lived be a guide to all of us as we work to make the world a better place. And let us say, Amen. We love you, Mom.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Carol. All sharing words from the heart that go to the heart. Let's take all this collage of beautiful memories and stories as we reflect in a moment of silence about how Yona Victor gave us the ability to help make life count. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Now I would ask you to please rise for the El Malay Rachamim memorial prayer as you are able. El Malay Rachamim. Shochem Bamromi. Amitzay Menucha Nechona. Tachat Kanfei Shechina. In Keroshim Toharim. Kazoharakia Mashnirim. At Nishmat Davora. Bat Shmuel V'Simcha. Shalhalcha Liolama. Balarachamim. Yastirecha B'Seter Kirafav Liolamim. V'Yitzur B'Tzur Hayim Et Bishmata. Adonai Unachalata. V'Tanuach V'Shalom Mishkava. V'Noma. Amen. Compassionate God, eternal spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest from your sheltering presence to Yona, Diane, Victor, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence. Let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace. And let us say together, Amen. Early or late, all must answer the summons to return to the source of being. For we lose our hold on life when our time has come, as the leaf falls from the bough when its day is done. The deeds of the righteous enrich us all, as the fallen leaf enriches the soil beneath. The dust returns to the earth. The spirit lives on with God. Like the stars by day, our beloved dead are not seen by mortal eyes. They shine on forever, for theirs is eternal peace. Let us be thankful for the companionship that continues in a love stronger than death. Sanctifying the name of God, we honor the memory of Yona, Diane, Victor. As we recite the Kaddish Memorial Prayer, which we will do so slowly, deliberately, and lovingly. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah v'yalma v'vrach kirutei yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael v'gala u'v'zman kariv yimru amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'mei almayim. Yiparach, Yishtabach, Yipar, Yitzraham, Yitnaseh, Yitadar, Yitaleh, Yitalau, Shemei the Kudisha, Brifu. Leilam min kol berchata v'shirata, Tushtechata v'nechemata, Damiram v'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei Shloma Rabba min Shemaya. The Chayim Aleinu v'al Kol Yisrael Bimru. Amen. Osei Shalom Bimrumav V'yasei Shalom Aleinu v'al Kol Yisrael Bimru. Amen. May God grant peace to those who mourn and comfort all the bereaved among us. As we say together, Amen. Now there's one final mitzvah that we can do for Yona. Yona, who did so many things for so many people, for her dear family, for her friends, for her patients, for her students, for the ill, served by the Jewish community chaplaincy. In fact, it's considered to be one of the highest mitzvot of chesed, of loving kindness. And that's to take a handful of earth and to put it on the grave. It's considered to be such a mitzvah because for everything else, when someone does you a favor, you say thank you. Yona is no longer able to say thank you physically. But know that on high, she is smiling, she is embracing us, and she is saying thank you for helping you, for helping me count on you, even as we counted on her. So if you'd like now, I would ask you to be careful about the open gravesite. And if you would like to take a handful of earth and to put it on the casket.
We're going last, so everyone please.
Lech ki shachacha Adonai. Go your way, Yona, for God has called you. Lech Adonai yeh imach. Go your way, Yona, and may God be with you. V'halach lefanecha tzidkecha, kavod Adonai ya'aspecha. May your righteousness go before you, Yona, and the glory of God receive you. I would now like to ask all of the friends who are gathered here to repeat these words after me, speaking them to the mourners. May God console you with all who mourn in Zion and Jerusalem. Hamakom yenachem etchem b'toch sha'ar of Leit Zion Yerushalayim. Now, go forth in peace to life and make each day count. Shiva will be this Sunday afternoon, socially distanced outside at Ellen's home, Yona's home, and The Shiva will be via Zoom on Monday night and Tuesday night. The details are all on the information there. You bet, or on Feldman's. We thank all of you who have come in here in person on this beautiful day, and we thank all of you in the virtual world throughout the country who have joined us. Zecher Tzadik Livracha, may the remembrance of the righteous be for a blessing. As we say together, Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to conclude the service. We're going to, the family would like to witness the vault and earth being placed in the grave. In order for the cemetery staff to be able to do that, we need to move away on this side of the pathway for the family. Ellen and family will be available also to share a story or two if you'd like.
We would also like you guys to sign in on the sign-in sheet and share a memory of Yona. So please share a memory for her, and that will also be at the Shiva on Sunday.
Yes.